Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Michael, and I'm trying to explore all the different ways that stationery can bring me joy. Another month has come to a close. November has rolled into December, and I thought it would be really fun to do another flip through of the last month in my daily journal, which is my Hobonichi A6 Techo Original. I also thought, since we're nearing the end of the year, that I could use this opportunity of doing a flip through to kind of reflect on a year of journaling inside my daily journal. So pull up a chair, get comfy, and let's talk about the last month in my journal and my journal evolution over time. I'll be doing the flip through first, and then I'll put in a bookmark so that you can know when that ends, and then I'll be doing the reflection. If you just want to hear the reflection, you can jump ahead. But I welcome you to join me for all parts or just some parts of this as we kind of move into the new year. So in schools, we have this idea of interim assessments, and at one school that I worked at, we called it looking forward, looking back. And so this is kind of that for my journal. I'm going to look back to kind of see what forward will look like, and also share with you some tools that I've been using recently to help me expand and grow in my journaling practice. So without further ado, let's jump into November in my journal. So November was a great month. It was the month where I hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. And again, I want to thank you all for being here. I made this little post-it to take a photo of it and put in my community post when we hit that milestone. And so I decided to put it here to remember it by. On November 1st, I went to Yaseka. They had an event where they had two illustrators doing drawings or portraits of people. One person did like person portraits and one person did pet portraits. And so they designed this very beautiful postcard that your portrait would go on the back of. And since it's postcard size and very thick, I made a photocopy, a color photocopy. And so I cut out the front image, and then here is the drawing that was done of me, obviously shrunken a little bit. And so we can kind of consider this a little bit of a face reveal, although it is me, in animated style. And then I wrote on the inside that I went to Yaseka Land with my friend, and I got a portrait done of myself, while my friend got a pet portrait done of her cat. And I just really like this double door tip-in style. And I'm really, really excited at how well this turned out. I had seen on, if you follow the Common Corner, I can put her YouTube channel here. She mentioned that she's been loving this Muji washi tape that is perforated. And so it tears off in these little perforated bits. And I believe Jackalope Journals on this on YouTube as well has mentioned how much she enjoys this, and I'll link her channel here as well. And it is pretty nice. It tears off in these little strips. And what I have found actually is another use that is kind of amazing, is it works as a way to do tip-ins. If you tear off a piece at two rectangles and you leave the perforation connecting the two pieces, it is a natural place where the washi will then want to bend and almost create a hinge that will allow for perfect tip-ins. So this has these in these areas. I kept two pieces connected, and the perforated line made a natural hinge for the doors to shut. So I think that is a really excellent and economic way to have tip-in material. And that is, again, this Muji perforated washi. November 2nd was the day that I hit the 1,000 subs, so I just wrote a little thing celebrating. My husband wrote me a little card, and so I tipped in the front of it there. November 3rd, starting to feel very, very fall, and I wanted to capture that feeling because it is my favorite season. On November 4th, we had the election for the mayor here in New York, and so I kind of wrote about that, and that Mom Donnie won that election. Again, November 5th, the fall vibes just really, really are permeating New York at that time, and I wanted to capture that in my journal and documented some happy mail I sent out. This Thursday, November 6th, it's a very long day. I got home and Jackalope Journals, I mentioned her earlier. She had some new printables for sale, and so I purchased some of those, and in the sticker paper that I printed it out, her logo was there, so I cut it out and put it here as well. I noticed that one of my sticker sheets had a jackalope, and I thought that that was kind of serendipitous, so I put them together. Friday was the spelling bee at school, which I'm kind of in charge of organizing, and that was a great day. I wrote a little bit about National Fountain Pen Day and how I successfully showed some restraint, because in my fountain pen hobby, I have a lot of very affordable to like mid-line pens, and I know that one day I'm going to want kind of a, super nice pen, but I need to do some research and try some things out before I pull the trigger on that. This day, I did a spread checking in. This is where I started using some new tools to help kind of expand my journaling. As I've been journaling throughout the year and as I've evolved, I really started to think how I can take it to the next level. And so, Skillshare had reached out to me to give me 6 months free of Skillshare to see how I liked it and if I would like to, promote it on my channel. And I took some time in doing that because I did want to actually take some classes to see if it's something that I thought was really useful. I took Abby C's class on everyday journaling, and this is a spread that she highlights in that class. And so it's just checking in. How are you feeling? What can you do better tomorrow? Hers had a couple of more questions, but it was a 2-page spread. So I kind of just created this 1-page spread based off of that class that I took. And so definitely would recommend, if you're going to go on Skillshare, checking out that class. It's a great class about everyday journaling. I do have an affiliate link, which I can link below. And if you use it, you can get a month free of Skillshare. And I can't remember exactly the perks of using that link, but I'm sure to type it here and include it in the description. But that is one of the spreads, or this is one of the spreads that was inspired by the class that I took on there. The next day was my friend's birthday brunch. Wrote a little bit about that. Got rained on. It was quite sad. This November 10th was my husband and I's 1-year wedding anniversary. And so I wrote a little bit about work and then what we did to celebrate. Our wedding was kind of, my husband is getting his PhD in medieval literature. So it had kind of a English medieval castle hint of a vibe. It wasn't fully decked out like we were in medieval times or anything, but it definitely was inspired by some of the fonts and color schemes and images of this time. And so that sticker set that I bought from Jackalope Journals had this very medievally font, and I knew I needed to get it because I thought it would be lovely to write year number 1 to kind of commemorate our anniversary. Tuesday, we didn't have school. It was Veterans Day, so I got to go get a haircut, did some shopping, chatted on the phone, just had a lovely day out, and so I captured that here. Again, leaning into my corner-to-corner fallback style. I went out to get tea with a friend after work on the 12th, and this is another spread here on the 13th that I used Abby C's class to kind of inspire. She had one of her prompts or assignments in her class to do kind of like a mood board or a vision board. And so I kind of did that in here. There's this prize you can apply to in New York called the David Prize, and anyone can apply, and you just give an idea for how you can make New York City even better, and if they like your idea, you can get chosen and you can get funding. And so I wrote about, getting books to students in areas that don't have bookstores or access to a lot of books. And so because this is kind of like a, big dream to apply for this, Lord knows if I'll even, make it past the first round. But it's fun to think about what you could do with your time if you were given funding to do so. And so I did, newspapers, books, reading, storefront, to kind of think about what that would look like, and did a little bit of a journal on that, and was definitely inspired by Abby C's vision board assignment to do this spread. On this day, 3 main things happened. And you can see I'm really starting to try to step out of my comfort zone. And so this time I was like, what if I just wrote, a big word for the 3 things that happened? I went to a dance performance. There was professional development. Then I went home and relaxed, and I wrote over those words with some text. Went out to Brooklyn to do some shopping on the 15th. And one of the things that I picked up was these new stickers that have more male figures. So really excited. I have been, let me see if I can find one of those guys. Oh, Lord. Yeah, so there's these male figures, and I've been using them a lot. But now I've got these black and white, more simple line drawing gentlemen as well. The 16th, went out to the Bryant Park Christmas Market, went to Kino Kanaya to look at some stationery. My husband and I went to Barnes & Noble's. We had a book club book we had to pick up, and we couldn't get it at the library. It was like super on back order. So just kind of did one of these stickers to represent parts of my day. On Monday, I kind of did a little bit of a spread to do some reflection on getting older. I am approaching a milestone birthday next year, and just kind of reflecting on what that feels like. Tuesday was character day at school, and so you can dress up as any character. And I have my graduate robes from grad school. They are black, and I usually just throw those on, and I carry around a wand and put the little scar on my forehead and wear clothes that are reminiscent of British boarding school. And, I call it my, Kmart Harry Potter, or I guess Temu Harry Potter would make more sense for these days. But so many kids this year are like, "Are you a judge? Are you a judge?" And I had to keep repeating myself, "No, I'm Harry Potter." Much to their disappointment. And so I drew a little image of the scar on my forehead, and just this summed up my day that day. On this day, I took another class on Skillshare with an artist who has a class on doing illustrated journaling. Her name is Dylan Mierzwinski, and it was really interesting. She has a bunch of prompts for how to do a journal entry using illustration, and one of them was currently listening. I didn't participate in the Spirit Week event this day, didn't have much to say, so I was like, okay, well, why don't I do one of these prompts for illustrated journaling, and it's just to draw the album cover of the album you're listening to. And at this point, I was listening a lot to Folklore and Evermore by Taylor Swift, and so I drew my version of the Folklore album cover, kind of using her class as, to guide me through it. And yeah, I just used my Tombow markers, and I think it turned out pretty great for someone who is trying to stretch my illustration or drawing prowess. I'm really excited about that. And I think that's the beauty of Skillshare. If you've never used it, you can go in, you can search and just find all these different classes. There are some watercolor courses that I think look really interesting as someone who's trying to get into that. I know Abby C. also, I mentioned her before. She also just dropped a new class about like the basics of fountain pen use for journaling. So if you're, newer to using fountain pens, I think that would be really, really great. But Dylan Mierzwinski's illustrative journaling, she gives 14 prompts, and this was one of the day's prompts, which was currently listening. And I'm realizing I did not cross that T, so I need to go back. But yeah, that was my Wednesday. On the 20th, again, trying to stretch myself out, and if I don't have a lot of like text reflection to do, how can I, represent the day? My friend came over for dinner, and it was very funny because she was like, I would love to order Indian food. I'm really like, just like have such a need or a desire to have some Indian, and she asked me to order her chicken korma, and I was like, oh, interesting. Like, in my mind, people usually get chicken tikka masala, but I love chicken korma, so I was like, great. And it turns out that's not what she meant. She had remembered wrong, and while she enjoyed it, it was not her favorite thing. And I put, just like sometimes she wants to have the ice cream sundae at the shop we go to, but she doesn't remember that she wants some of the things swapped out. For example, she doesn't like brownies, so I just put chicken korma, the sundae as is, and like things my friend thinks she likes is the overlapping in the Venn diagram. And I talked a little bit about our dinner this day. Went out to the grocery store after work, bought some tea, was having tea while I journaled, and so I put in the ephemera from that. On Saturday the 22nd, my husband and I went to go see a show, which the title of the show is not something I can say on YouTube freely. So Prince, and there is, an F slur here. It was a very interesting show. It kind of imagines if one of the children of William and Kate were to be gay when they get older, what that would look like. And it was a very fascinating show. I wouldn't say that it was my favorite show, but I think it definitely had some interesting conversation starters after we watched it. And so I wrote a little bit about that. On Sunday, the 23rd, I was preparing some Happy Mail. And so I wrote on the back of this memo pad from Yoseka about getting my Happy Mail together. And I thought it would be fun to kind of put it in this little envelope. This is me getting closer to junk journaling as I can get, I guess, in here with my style. On the 24th of November, I started feeling sick. And so at work, I drank an obscene amount of lemon ginger tea with raw honey in it. And so I thought I would kind of capture my day by the amount of cups of tea that I drank. Did another day. On this 25th, we had a half day at school because we actually get the Wednesday off for Thanksgiving. So I wrote half day and wrote a little bit about what happened. Quick at work, drinking a lot of tea, feeling sick, came home and basically just went to sleep. And then Wednesday, the infamous sick. I was just not feeling well. I got up very early to go to the grocery store to get the food for Thanksgiving. That wiped me out, and I was just in bed the rest of the day while my poor husband had to clean. And this is another spread inspired by Dylan Mierzwinski's illustrated journaling class on Skillshare. She has a prompt that was like the ingredients of my mess, and then also like a grocery shopping prompt, and I kind of like combined them to represent my day with just these illustrations. So I drew and colored in with my Tombos everything I made for Thanksgiving. We host Thanksgiving, so my origin sage turkey and the sweet potato casserole and my mashed potatoes, the green bean casserole, and the stuffing. And this year I switched up the stuffing recipe to a friend's recipe. And so everything turned out lovely, but after a crazy day of cooking and then cleaning after, I actually really enjoyed journaling about it this way because it seemed like a fun little coloring activity as opposed to, coming in and writing a whole spread. The next day we saw Wicked for Good. I attempted my best attempt at the title prompt. I've got the wand and the broom and kind of just wrote a little bit about how I felt about it. On Saturday, my friend and I went and did some small shop, Appreciation Saturday shopping. And so we went to some shops in Brooklyn because we had to we both had some places we wanted to go, get some gifts, start Christmas shopping. And at Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, they had a poetry like gumball machine or like toy machine. And so I put the poem that we got out of that machine here. And then on the 30th, it was the lamentations of having to go back to work the next day after having a nice 5-day break. And so I wrote those out there. And that is November in my journal. And what I appreciate about November is, extreme tip-ins with minimal writing. I appreciate that I'm continuing to find kind of like my groove, but also stretching myself with, taking some classes on Skillshare to come up with new prompt ideas. Really leaning into illustrating more or being more minimal so that journaling doesn't always feel like if I don't have a ton to say, there's no pressure to actually fill up a page with text. I can think of interesting ways to graphically represent what I'm feeling or thinking. Really pushing myself on my illustration. I think doing this Dylan Mierzwinski's illustrated journaling class is really pushing me to think of things in a new way, how to borrow things from like infographics or memes to also represent how my day goes, pushing myself into some more ephemera and making my journal a little more interactive, I think is really exciting. And yeah, that is what I've learned this month. And this kind of jumps us into a reflection on the year of journaling, right? I started this journal and I had a lot more text packed in here. And so, I started with having a prompt for each day and using the left-hand column to kind of answer that prompt. And then that like kind of invisible line using this column to just kind of write about my feelings for the day. And I did that for a very long time, from January all the way to like May. And that's in May when I started kind of experimenting more with the idea of larger stickers, of using stickers in the center, writing the text around it. But in wanting to express myself or do more fun things like this, I realized that I was giving myself less and less space for text. And I think part of this pressure is why having a cousin for next year is going to be so great for me, because my prompt writing is going to go into the weekly section, and I'm really excited about that. I already was kind of used to doing this column of text for the prompt, and to have a whole week of prompts, week by week, to be able to do that, I think is going to be fun. And then having the larger page to have more stickers, ephemera, and have space for writing, I think is going to be really awesome. And so I know that when I went into June, that's when I really started to break. I had moments where there wasn't a prompt and I just drew some clouds. I had a really sad day and I wrote around it. And it was kind of freeing. And even here on the next day, my prompt area got smaller and I used more space for writing. I started to tell myself, you are self-imposing this rule. There's no law as to what this has to look like. And so I started to explore more about what that looks like. And then the prompts went away entirely, and it was more just writing and including that ephemera, having, little stickers and writing my ideas, putting some titles into my journaling. And I really enjoyed how freeing that was, and it allowed me to continue with that idea of including different stickers, including ephemera, and then even thinking things don't necessarily have to be prose written in the normal way. I could start doing lists to get my idea across. It still counts as journaling, and I think that's a mantra that I had to tell myself over and over. Journaling is what I make it. It's my journal. There's no steadfast rule, and as someone who likes rules and structure, it's been really, really interesting to see how I can push myself to live outside of them. And as the year went on, even just starting to think about using stamps or ink as decoration to start illustrating a little bit. in my journal. And, I'm not someone who thinks of myself as someone who draws well, but I'm also starting to realize that that is a very arbitrary thing, especially in a journal where it is just for me. I mean, I do know that I share my flip throughs, but I do that to kind of talk about my experience and to kind of connect with the community about what journaling is like. But I'm not trying to, create a perfect spread. And so I was like, you know what, Michael, ice cream is just blobs. Why don't you just color some blobs and put some line on it, see how it goes? And, letting myself kind of be okay with things being imperfect, which then led me to letting myself fill a whole page with just some drawing, to think about how these lists and things can incorporate with regular writing as well in my journaling day to day, and leading me to then also think about space in different ways. I don't have to fill up the whole page. I could have a column of small paper. I started doing these my day and sticker kind of spreads, and I really, really enjoyed the way that that looked. And so this has come up multiple times in my journaling. One example here, another example here. I do find layering has become a lot of fun, like washi and ephemera and stickers all together in my journal. And even though I still do kind of have this corner to corner, I like to do the two corners to decorate, I am trying to explore more and more different ways to put that decoration down on the page. And then leading me to just expressing myself through words, and again, these larger illustrations that I'm putting into my work. And it's pretty amazing to see myself, jumping from where I was at the beginning, when I was living very much like text dominated, the page, to, being here where my, journal has maybe 2 sentences written in it, but with some fun deco in the background, or that I am completely allowing myself to illustrate only in my journal. And that is kind of an insane jump from one style and how I've come through an evolution to now here in November and continuing into December. So thank you so much for joining me for this reflection and this walkthrough of my journal in November. I would love to know in the comments how your journaling has evolved over time. Are you a fill the page with text kind of person every day, no matter what? No deco, no ephemera. It's just the same pen, the same paper. I'd love to know how that works out for you. Did you start that way like me, kind of? Although I did do some deco to begin with, and slowly moved your way into something else. Have you always been an illustrator? Do you view your sketchbook as your journal? Do you switch it up? Some days text, some days illustration, some days junk journaling. Do you have 3 separate journals? I write in this one, I junk journal in this one. I'd love to know what journaling looks like for you. And are there any classes you've taken that have inspired you to expand your journaling experience? Again, having used Skillshare now for a couple of months, it has been really, really helpful to learn from other people and honestly getting the prompts from them. Just like when I started journaling, I enjoyed these, writing prompts. It has been really fun to take these Skillshare classes and to get a prompt for how to do a journal spread. And so whether it was with Abby C, and, these kinds of prompts and spreads, or Dylan Mierzwinski and just being illustrating completely, I really am excited that Skillshare has opened the door to other opportunities. And again, if you would like to use Skillshare in your own practice to help get some classes, I do have the information in my description to allow you to join and get a month free, among other things that I will make sure to put all the details there. Thank you so much again for listening. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you have a great rest of the day, whether that is 10 minutes before you're going to go to bed or it's early in the morning and you have a full day ahead of you. I hope however much time you have, it is amazing. And I hope that you keep continuing to explore the possibilities of a blank page. Until I see you again, goodbye.